All right, so I'm going to go over my favorite drill that I was working on the range when I was practicing. Like I said in earlier videos, I pretty much spent all of my time in practice just working on tee shots. That was 90% of my practice time at least. And there was definitely times where I was working on my swing in some of the cases, and then there were other times where I was working on the performance aspect of it in other cases. So basically my drill that I came up with and that I did on the rig was to simulate one round of golf of just tee shots, and my goal was to eventually try to get to where I could hit 14 tee shots, not counting the par threes, 14 tee shots findable. Now the number I decided on for findable was 65-yard window. That comes from Decade Golf, Scott Fawcett. And if you want to figure out what 65 yards looks like when you're practicing or even on the golf course, you can certainly Google map it. I did that at my driving range. Or you can do this. Make this sign with your hand, rock and roll, and then hold it out full distance away from you, straight arm. And if you do that and point it out there in the distance, at 300 yards, this is about 65 yards from left to right. So if you have a couple of flags out on the range or buildings or trees or whatever, that gives you your 65-yard window. So the goal was to get through 14 tee shots for maybe an upcoming round and try to see if I can get all 14 into that window. I don't care about fairways at this point, and I still kind of don't. I'm just trying to hit them all findable, right? So maybe a round of golf, as you're planning out your round, you might say the first hole is a 3-wood. So first off, 3-wood, see if you can get it in the window. Second one is a driver, hit driver. Third hole's a 3-wood. Fourth hole's a driver. Fifth hole's a hybrid. Sixth hole's a par 3. Seventh hole's a so forth. And your mission, like I said, is to get through all 14 with all 14 coming down in the window. At first I had a hard time doing this, so I kind of made it a little bit easier. I told myself, look, if I can get through a round of golf and only lose 1 ball or only lose 2 balls, I'd be happy with that, because that's still an improvement over what I'm actually seeing on the golf course. So I started off giving myself 2 that were, if I hit 2 outside that window, I was still alive and could continue on. Once I got to 3 outside that window, I would start over from 0. But what this drill did for me was a couple things. Number one is it gave me a very wide area, reasonably wide area for my shots. I wasn't trying to hit laser beams. I was trying to just keep it in this 65-yard window. Number two, as I started doing it and was successful doing it, it gave me some confidence that I could actually do this on the golf course, which I think is a big thing. Number 3, as you're working through this, as you get towards the end of your 14 golf balls, you might actually start to feel some pressure, like you don't want to have to restart. You might start to feel a little bit nervy, especially on the last 1 or 2. And that is about as good as you can do on the range when it comes to simulating on-course conditions. It's really hard on the range to simulate what it feels like in a tournament, don't get me wrong. But it does a little bit of a job of doing that. And eventually I got to the point where I would try to do 36 holes. I have a 2-day event coming up, and if I lose 1 ball in 36 holes or 2 balls or 3 balls, whatever, I would make it manageable and doable, but I would also just work on that all the time. I also like that it forced me to switch clubs all the time. It was not just 14 drivers in a row. It's a driver, a hybrid, a 3-wood, then a driver, then a driver, going in the order that I would say if I was starting on the first hole of a tournament. So that was my favorite drill. That was my go-to for performance. I recommend you give it a try. I also use this on the golf course if I'm trying to find the center point of a findable zone. So I'll stand there, hold my hands out there. It's kind of like aim point, if you will. You know how you do this. We'll call it sniff point, right? But doing that gives you 65 yards at 300 yards, and then you can take the center of that, which is right where your middle 2 knuckles are, and that would be the center of your aim zone. Last comment on this: if you're experimenting with shot shapes, plain. If you're experimenting with shot shapes, which I was for a while, I would say I would try to do this drill and only hit fades one time through and see how I did. And then I would do it again and try to only hit draws and see how it went. And then I would do it again trying to just hit laser beams and see how it went. And it helped me kind of settle on what worked best for me, being able to go through it with different modes like fades, draws, and straights, and so forth. So give that a shot. Definitely worked for me, and I hope it helps you out.